days of old, things of the past, memories of you, the only things that last. Thoughts of your words, things you used to say. All I have to remember is our yesterdays. I'm remembering. Times we had, moments we shared, the things you did to show that you cared. Nothing left of you but my memories. Your face will I never again see. I'm remembering. Certain days I sit down and cry, I'm wondering why'd you have to die? Why'd you leave? Oh, why'd you have to go? Knowing that I loved you and would miss you so. Now what has gone by is nothing but time. I act like I'm okay, like I'm doing fine. Thinking of you and the times we shared. Know that I love you and I'll always care. Remembering. Your face, remembering your smile, remembering your touch, remembering. You know I love you so much, remembering. All right, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you all are tuning in to this very, I guess, special edition of Get Educated, Get Empowered with Toneal. Most of you all know I normally go live at 6. We get in the mix at 6. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Matt. Hey, Vanessa. Hello to everybody that is tuning in. Thank you guys so much again. I know this is normally later. This is later than my normal time, but I said that I was going to do this show, and I really wanted to do this because I feel like it's necessary to discuss it, right? So before we jump into it, first of all, let me say hello to everybody that's tuning in, whether you are watching on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or even listening to Noon Vibe. I want to say hello. So to Davina, Robin, Zenobia, to everybody that's tuning in, wherever you're tuning in from, hello. And please, everybody, do me a favor, speak back. So number one, I know to acknowledge you, right? Number two, like and share the video. And then number three, tag somebody that you believe would benefit from this podcast. So who would benefit from tonight's podcast? Anybody that you know who has lost a loved one, and just struggling to cope, right? So today's show is called The Death Effects. And I started this show for those of you who are not on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm sorry, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. But for everybody else, you did not get the beginnings of the show. So I started this show with my song, Remembering, that I feel like is very appropriate for what we're talking about today. And it's really, again, the death effects. I know that this can seem gloom and, very negative, but I want to find a way. And you guys know what I try to do is we go through each of my four areas of expertise: the arts, entrepreneurship, relationships, and self-care, and find a way to get a solution, right? Figure out how we can cope with whatever the topic is. And so the reason why I wanted to do why I want to discuss death today is because just within this last week, right? Today is, and I normally don't, kind of title or put a date on my stuff, but I want to just put it in context. So today is July 19th. And so from July 12th to present day, we have lost so many. There's so many celebrities that you guys have heard of, right? That you guys know about. And so, whereas, yes, we want to pay our respects to the likes of like Shannen Doherty, Shelley Duvall, Richard Simmons, Dr. Ruth, even Bob Newhart, right? Everybody or many people, depending on what circle you're in, whether you were into TV, fitness, advisory columns, or whatever their respective audiences were, if that's who you were into, then you guys know who they are. But the question, that I really want to kind of also talk about is, well, what happens if you're is somebody that people don't know about, right? Like, just because the person may not be a celebrity, if you lost a loved one, and for those of you who may be watching, if you lost a loved one, then feel free to put it in the comment section, like put in their name in the comment section, just to kind of remember them and pay tribute to them. And those of you who are listening, you guys can even inbox those names, right? Or throw up a hand or something if you lost someone, because I think that it is important that we always remember, and that's what's at the end of that video, always remembering that we always remember those who we have lost. And so understand that when we say you've lost someone, that's really it's really a kind of silly thing to say, because it's not like you don't know where they are. People say, well, I'm sorry for your loss, and we have to make sure we're saying loss, LOSS, and not LOST, right? Because you know where to find them. They're not lost. But when we say loss, it means that you is something that you no longer possess, as in like a tense of losing, right? So but the thing about it, and I guess that might be my quick artistic part of it from a literary standpoint, is just knowing the difference between loss and lost. But just jumping into it, I want to talk about, those of us who have uh suffered loss, and I think that I'll say it like this: if it's not everybody, you keep living, right? My grandmother would say things like that all the time. Like, if you keep living long enough, every situation that you think would never be you somehow becomes you, right? We think that certain things will never be us, well, that'll never happen to me, I've never had that happen. Well, keep living, and you live long enough and it will happen to you as well, right? And it's not trying to speak anything negative into anybody's life. It's simply to say that this is just how life goes, right? Like, life is cyclical and life is seasonal. And so every what it says, like, to every life some rain must fall. That's just how it goes. It's not trying to make it be. But at the end of the day, I just went to a funeral not too long ago, and it kind of puts you in that mindset. Like, at the end of the day, either you will be going to somebody's funeral or somebody will be coming to yours. It's really just that simple. And I know this is a relatively somber topic. I don't plan on being here long tonight because it's so late at night. And I don't want to, hey Shamika, I do not want for people to go to bed on a negative note, right? Because again, the song, the video that I played, remembering, it when I first wrote that song. So, matter of fact, that's where we're gonna start. We'll start talking about the song of remembrance. So that's where the arts part will come in at. So in 2022, I recorded the song that again, those of you if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, the way that the show came on today was playing that song. And I don't know if he's still watching or not, but Matthew Long was my producer through Courtney Music. He produced that song for me, and again, I'm forever indebted to him for that. Forever grateful. But when I wrote the song in 2022, it was really as paying a way to pay homage to my mom and honor her. And the reason why 2022 was important was because that was the 20th year to mark her the day that she left me, right? So I call it her death anniversary. And so it was when I wrote the song, I wrote the song years before I recorded it and released it. But in writing for me is a very therapeutic way of dealing with feelings. And so when we're talking about the death effects, and so for those of you who may have lost someone and you're trying to figure out how to cope, sometimes you cannot put your grief, your depression, your feelings, whatever it is, sometimes you cannot put it into verbal words, right? But it can help when you write it out. And so that is one thing that I can tell you all that you can use. Like, it doesn't have to be a book that you're looking to have for public release, or a song or a movie or whatever, right? Like, I've done all of that, but I am a creative. That's what I do. I am in that artistic vein. So I'm an author. So whether I write books or write songs or write scripts for movies, for docuseries, that's what I do. That's how I express myself. But I can definitely let you guys know that it is a way to release. It's very cathartic, right? Like, if you have stuff that's bottled up and maybe you don't have anybody that you can talk to about how you feel, then I would strongly encourage you all to be sure that you are writing it down, right? Or if you are a singer, sing it out. Like, that's really where the arts come into play, because a lot of people who live in the arts, whether it is literary, visual, or performance, will tell you it's a way of expressing yourself and all the different feelings that you have inside, whether it's a dancer, a spoken word artist, a filmmaker. Like, everything that's in here, it has to have a way to come out. And so many times that artistic avenue is what we use to get it out. And so, like I say, I would definitely, when we are dealing with death, or in the death effects, as we're calling this, when we are dealing with the death effects, I would strongly encourage you all, if you are not into therapy, and we'll talk about that under the Self Care Act, but if you're not into therapy in terms of talking to somebody else, then make sure that you are finding a way to get it out. Because many times, we when we go through things, and I don't know if it's a man thing or a woman thing, I think it's a person thing, right? Because the way that society has us believing, and again, I like the way that society is coming along now, because now we are in this whole mental health movement, right? Like, we're part of the "it's okay to not be okay" movement. So you don't have to be strong when you are not. You don't have to act like you are when you're not. It's okay to not be okay. And so, if you are dealing with loss and you're trying to figure out what to do, first of all, let me say, don't put yourself on a time limit. That was one of the misconceptions that I had, that was told to me. Well, it shouldn't take all of this time. You shouldn't still be crying. You shouldn't. Let me tell you something. Depending on the loss that you are suffering, you just never know the effects that it will have on you. And so you have to be graceful to yourself and understand that you need that time, right? Especially dependent on the person who it is that you lost. So, like in my case, I've shared this multiple times. from 2002 to 2012, it was one of the most difficult decades of my life because literally every year I lost at least one major somebody, like kicking it off with my mother. So, my mother was '02, my biological father and my maternal grandmother were '03, my aunt was '04, my uncle was '05, my grandmother's best friend was '06, my nephew was '07, my cousin was '08, another uncle in '09. Like we had a huge family. And so you have to understand, on my dad's side, there were 12 siblings. He was one of 12. On my mom's side, she was one of nine. Everybody had children, right? And so from '02 to 2012, like what remains now from that, my dad, his 12, there's one remaining sister. My mom's nine, there are three remaining sisters. So I grew up having all of these uncles and aunts and cousins, and now to be one of the very few that's left is going to take a toll, right? And so, and again, I'm simply sharing my story, not saying that I'm the only one, but just to make it relatable, to understand that regardless of how old or young you may be, when you lose someone that you care about, it's going to take a toll, it's going to have an effect. And it may not just last for the day of their service. It may not last just, okay, you found out that they're gone. And so now tomorrow you're okay. If that person was a part of your life, regardless of how long or short a time, if they were near and dear to you, then hey Ken, if they were near and dear to you, then it's going to take you a minute to cope with that loss, right? And again, so for me, when I talk about the death effects, is number one, being real with yourself and being honest and true to yourself about how that death is affecting you. Like, to understand that you don't have to handle it the way that everybody else handles it, or the way that everybody else tells you to handle it. Like, I remember when I had lost, when my mom passed away, I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was 6.5 months pregnant with my first daughter. My mother passed. And there were a lot of different people who were telling me not to cry. They were like, like, you don't want to cry because crying is going to hurt the baby. And I don't think, like, if I'm being fair and if I'm being honest, I don't think that they meant it literally, like looking back. But being only 22 years old, and I was pregnant with my first daughter. I had never been pregnant before. I didn't know anything. So when there are certain people that's telling you, hey, you don't want to cry because that's going to hurt the baby, then for me, I took that as a thou shalt not cry, right? Like it became a commandment, like, okay, don't, if you are pregnant, you can't cry. And keep in mind that I was pregnant in '02, '04, '06, '08, right? And so again, every year, if I was not pregnant and giving birth to a child, I was losing somebody. And the point that I'm making with that is because of that misnotion in my head that you're not supposed to cry. There was so much grief that was bottled up, and I did not know that it was having negative effects on me. And so when we talk about the death effects, it's, you have to understand that death does affect you, and it doesn't just have to be somebody that you are biologically related to. Anybody who was some type of connection for you in your life. And that's the reason why you will see a lot of people, when celebrities die, you may have never met them physically a day in your life, but somehow you connected to them, right? So whether they were like a role model for you, whether this was somebody like you related to on whatever level. So when a person passes, it's so finite. I mean, like, this is the end. Like, so it, because it's so final, and then especially, heaven forbid, if you didn't get a chance to say goodbye and you don't feel as though you have closure, these are things that, as long as you remain, that you have to find a way to deal with, right? I'll never forget, I want to say the year was 2017, if I'm not mistaken, that both Luke Perry and John Singleton passed away. And you may say, okay, well, did you know Luke Perry or John Singleton? Not directly, I didn't. But understand that I came up in the same era. I came up watching Beverly Hills 90210 and Boys in the Hood and so many different John Singleton movies. But beyond that, understand the cause of their death. They both died from strokes. I'm a stroke survivor. So it hits a little bit different when you're able, when you end up surviving something that somebody else didn't survive, right? And so for me, it's always like that definitive attitude of gratitude, because I realize that that's even more of a reinforced notion to say that could have been you, because this one had a stroke, and then a month later this one had a stroke, and it took both of them out, yet you've had multiple and you are still here, right? And so again, I'm saying we have to learn, when we talk about the death effects, we want to talk, we got to understand the gratitude that we should have for our lives, because it should get you to understand that you should not take it for granted. Like, life is not something that we should take for granted. It is very precious, and not just our own life, but the lives of those that's around us. That's how come every day, number one, you should live life to the fullest. Yes, you should live life with no regrets. Yes, but you should also respect and appreciate everybody that you have in your life. Like, stop waiting until their birthday or a special occasion or some calendar day that man tells you, oh, this is when you appreciate them. But I guarantee you, as a person who has lost so many people, I guarantee you that it, I won't necessarily say that it makes the hurt less, but there are certain feelings, like there are regrets that you don't have to have. If you treated people right all the time, then you don't have to have those, oh, I wish I could have, or I wish we would have. Like, you live every day on purpose. Like, whoever means something to you, you don't want to wait until they pass away before you express to them how you feel, before you show them how you feel. Like, treat every day as though it may be their last or your last. And for me, I feel like doing that, it keeps you humble, right? And it keeps you in a spirit of gratitude at all times. And so, just again, going back through this really quickly from the death effects from the art perspective, make sure that whatever you're feeling inside, get it out. Don't hold it inside. Don't hold your feelings hostage, right? So if it's anger, if it's bitterness, if it's grief, if it's sadness, if it's depression, like whatever those feelings are, and especially if they're negative, find a way to express them, right? Find an artistic way to express them. So whether you write, and again, this don't ever have to be whatever you put out. Nobody else ever has to see it or hear it, because it's for you. So whether you write a book, you write a song, you sing a song, you make a little video, like, find a way to get it out, because the more that you're able to get it out, the better. The more that you're able to express how you feel, the better, because it's helping you to come to terms with those things, right? And understand that you don't have a time limit. Again, I just told you guys, it's been, come August 18th, it'll be 21, let me see, 22 years since my mom passed. I still miss her all the time. It's just that now I don't cry all the time. You know, I can see a picture of her and not cry. I can hear her voice and not cry. When she first passed away, it was years, years with five S's. It was years before I could hear her voice. You know, my sister sings a song that my mother used to sing. I couldn't even be around my sister when she sang the song, because it would break me down so bad, right? But as I began to cope, and so let's go into that self-care aspect of the death effects, right? So coping for me was really like coming to terms with it. Yes, I did do some counseling. I am so not opposed to counseling or therapy or whatever it is that you want to call it. Like, I think that is necessary. And again, it depends. You have to know yourself and know what your coping mechanisms are, what's the things that help you to cope. For me, I am one who likes to talk my way through things, right? And so I I needed people to help me to make sense of things that happened. And so, again, when we're talking about self care, your mental health, there are going to be times where death takes a toll on you, right? So whether it was you were the care provider, the caregiver, if you were a member, a friend, a family, family member or friend or whatever, like, is going to affect you, if for no other reason than because that person, whatever capacity in which they played in your life, is now empty. So now you have to figure out, what do I do to fill that void, to fill that hole, to fill that space, to fill that time. So, like, if this was your best friend that passed away, and if you went every day with your best friend and they're no longer there, how do I now fill that space? What do I do with that time? Right. So, you have to figure something out to do with it, because otherwise, you're going to lose your mind, right? Like, we understand that nobody can ever take the place of whoever it is that passed away. However, one of the things that I always say within myself, is, okay, I know that this person loved me, and so they would not want to see me in a negative space, right? So a lot of times, the enemy may try to play with your mind and make you feel guilty, because it's like, well, how did you love them, but you're moving on? Well, because if people love me the way that I love, I always want the best for everybody, right? And so I know that my mom would not want me depressed. She wouldn't want me sad. She would want for me to make the best out of my life, right? So that's how you have to look at it, and not feel as though you're betraying whoever it is because you move on. But hey, whatever it is that you taught me, I'm trying to keep true to that. So you have to make sure that you're being authentic to yourself, and again, check on you. Am I okay? You have to ask yourself that question. Some days the answer may be yes. And guess what? Some days the answer may be no. Some days you might not be okay. And you don't owe anybody an explanation. Like, is if you want to explain it, okay, y'all, today just ain't a good day, or I'm just thinking about my whoever, filling in the blank, I just need some time for myself right now. And so, whether again that looks like talking to a therapist, a counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, a best friend, a ministerial person, talking to somebody to get it out. It may look like logging off of social media and just taking what they call a mental health day. Just, I'm gonna lay down today. I don't really want to do anything. Get an adult coloring book. Those are so therapeutic. Go for a walk, do some yoga, do some meditation, do things that will help to clear your mind and get your mind right, right? You want to surround yourself with positive thoughts and positive, so like positive music, positive songs, positive, if you're going to watch movies or whatever, surround yourself with positivity, with laughter. Those are the things that you need to help you to overcome the death effects, right? Because death is such a sombering experience, and you don't want to allow yourself to go too deep into it, because then you can find yourself going down a slippery slope, and that can potentially be dangerous, especially if you've suffered some other mental health issues, whether it be depression or, extreme stress or whatever, like PTSD. There are a lot of different issues that you could have suffered, and if you allow yourself to go down that slippery slope, you may very well trigger some things. And so let's then go into the relationship aspect of it. Like, make sure, again, like I say, talk to the people that remain. So if you are a parent, be sure to talk to your children, to explain to them, because I think that, whereas no, you don't necessarily owe people at large an explanation about, if you need a mental health day or if you need time to yourself. But I do feel that in your relationships, you want to be fair, right? And so being fair is expressing proactively, so if you're having a down day, talk to your children. Hey, you know what, y'all, mommy, daddy, whatever, I'm not today ain't a good day, or at least right now I need a couple hours to bounce back. Like, I'm so proud of y'all, or it has nothing to do with you all. And you can say this same talk to your significant other, if you need to take time off from your job, like you can be proactive so that way it's fair, right? Because if people don't know that you're going through something, even if you don't want to have an extended conversation with them. So I'm not saying that you have to tell them exactly what your feelings are, but if you are trying to preserve good relationship, then you want to be considerate and you want to be fair to them and let them know, hey, it's not a good day. Hey, I'm just a little bit off today. I need some time to myself. It's not you. It's nothing you've done. I'm not trying to lash out at you. I'm not trying to take this, what I'm feeling out on you. So if you don't mind, I need some time, and I can let you know when I'm good again, right? And most people will actually appreciate that honesty because we've all been there, right? At the end of the day, if you grown, you done been there. Mostly, I literally don't know an adult in my life that has not lost somebody. They may not have lost their mom or their dad, but they've lost somebody. And so everybody understands grief. And even if everybody grieves differently, we all get it. And so, in either case, if you're trying to preserve relationships and dealing with the death effects, I find it most helpful to have proactive communication and just let people know, hey, today isn't that day. Today is not the day. I'm not 100% right now. So I don't want to take it out on you all. So I just need a little bit of time, and I can let you know when I'm better. And if they ask and you feel like talking about it, then do. But if you don't, again, it's not you and it's nothing personal. But I just can't do it right now. I just need some time to myself. So in either case, guys, that is today's live. I didn't, as I told you, I didn't want to be long because again, I already was coming on a little bit late, but I did want to make good on this talk because I know that whenever we're talking about dealing with death, it's always a sensitive subject. It's always a sticky subject. And it's not always easy for people to talk about. However, the irony is that everybody's always going through it. Everybody is looking to have some type of support system so that they can talk about it. And that is what I would tell you guys to do, to make sure that you are talking about it. Oh yeah, let me with the entrepreneurship thing. So like, even if you're not an artistic person, one of the things that many people will find themselves doing is getting caught up in their work, right? So they find a way to stay productively busy, right? Because there's a difference between being busy and being productive. So there's another thing, that's another way that you can kind of just find a way to occupy your time in a positive way. So if you want to start doing, working on your business and whatever that capacity may look like, that's really what you want to do. Like I say, be true to yourself, allow yourself to grieve. So don't try to basically just keep yourself busy so that you never grieve, because at some point your body is going to remind, like, hey, you still got all of these feelings and they're adding up, they're piling up, right? So don't feel like that you can run away from it. You shouldn't even want to. Like, when you have lost somebody, um that pain is real. So you're not a superhero. Allow yourself to feel it. And it's okay. Give yourself the grace to cry those tears, to, however it is that you grieve, give yourself the grace to do that. But at the same point, to try to stay in a positive realm, that's what I said. Either use that artistic expression, get your mind focused on business, talk to somebody, or embrace your family, right? Have mental health time, um, push back from social media, go for walks, do yoga. All of those are things that you can do to keep your mind in a safe, positive space, all while grieving and dealing with what I call the death effects. So I'm hoping that you guys have enjoyed the podcast today. And again, remember, guys, that from now until the end of the month, you can pre-order my new course that's called Embracing No. So if you or someone may have a difficult time say no. Like, you have a difficult time standing up for yourself. You have a difficult time letting people, because you feel guilty. You feel like it's a reflection of your capabilities to say no, but then you get mad because you didn't say no. You don't know when to say no, how to say no, where to say no, who to say no to, what to say when you trying to say no. Any or all of those will be covered. So if any of those things are your issues, all of those things will be covered in the course. Again, if you get it from now through July 31st, it is only $49, and you can either cash app that or Zelle it. But if you wait until August 1st and beyond, it will be available on the website where you can read all of everything, as at $79. So in either case, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And again, if anything that I said, if it blessed you, then feel free to send some stars my way if you're watching on Facebook, or the whatever, the super chat or whatever they do on YouTube. Or just, heart me. Send me some, hey girl, you did a good job. Because again, at the end of the day, what I'm doing, I'm not necessarily doing it for the applause. I do believe that whenever I go live, and especially when it's on me, to do it like today, because again, I normally don't come live this late, but I know that this is a topic that people were waiting to hear about. And so even if it only touched one person, then I know what I did what I was supposed to do. So in either case, guys, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to the podcast. And I hope that on tonight you have been able to get educated and get empowered with Toneal. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend.